Nope, these record automatically.
Awesome. Good morning and welcome to the City School District of Albany Elementary Forum for the 2021-2022 school year. My name is Dr. Cecily Wilson Turner. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Elementary Education, and I'm going to take you through today's presentation and Q&A. As we do with every presentation, I will begin with our vision, mission, and goals. All of the work that we have done to draft our elementary back to school plan continues to be in alignment to the vision and mission and goals of the City School District of Albany. We are a district of excellence with caring adults and engaging learning opportunities, working in partnership with our diverse community focused on student achievement, quality instruction, strong leadership, empowering our families, and partnering with our diverse communities. I'd like to take this moment to have Superintendent Adams provide a brief introduction.
Good morning, and thank you so very much, Dr. Wilson Turner. I appreciate the work that you and your committee have done in order to provide this opportunity for our community to provide feedback with regard to what will it look like when we come back to school. And to our viewers and to our community, thank you very much for being a part of this process. As you know, this is the beginning of the process, and there will be other opportunities for additional feedback with regard to the use of ARP funds, with regard to what does it look like when we come back to school. I do have to add the piece about the New York State Department of Health guidelines, in that much of what we will do will have to be governed by the New York State Department of Health. And what are those items and what are those protocols for COVID-19 that will be required for schools, which may be different than what is provided for the community. And so we will stay in close contact with our State Department of Education as well as our State Departments of Health, so that we can make sure that we are abreast of what the latest guidance is. And so with that, I turn it back over to Dr. Cecily Wilson Turner, and thank you so very much again.
Thank you. So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, this is an opportunity to provide you with a draft of our back to school plan and get feedback from you and answer any questions you may have about our plans. We will take as many questions as we can in the time we have allotted for our forum today. So if you have feedback you would like to provide during this focus group, please use the chat function on your screen. So Superintendent Adams charged us very explicitly with developing a reopening committee last year that we continued this year to make sure that we could develop the best possible plan for the 21-22 school year, still with the vestiges of COVID pandemic in our wake. So she asked the committee to define a framework of learning in just two modalities. We were really committed to having our elementary students either in person or virtual, as we did not feel that a hybrid model would best serve their needs. And so what you'll see going forward in this presentation is the team's best thinking to date, given the current parameters that we have and the current guidance from the New York State Department of Health and the New York State Education Department. And our ultimate goal is to provide our best recommendation for a safe fall reopening that is most conducive for learning for our students. We had an amazing committee that worked on developing our back to school plan for the superintendent's consideration and for your feedback today. We had representation from every building and we had representation from core teachers, art, music, PE teachers, special area teachers, reading teachers, ENL teachers, so that we could develop the most well-rounded plan for moving forward. And I want to publicly thank them for their commitment and dedication to the students, families, and staff of the City School District of Albany to take the time to help develop this plan. Our current New York State Department of Health guidance will allow us to move to 3 feet apart for elementary school students. So before I go over the back to school plan with you, it's important that you have an understanding of these parameters and how they will impact us. I also want to note that as the guidance is updated, we will adjust our back to school plans and share them with our stakeholders. This chart represents how the community transmission rate determines physical distancing requirements as we welcome students back to school this fall. Elementary school students are always cohorted for instruction unless they are being pulled for small group with students from another class for, say, reading instruction or instrumental music instruction. As a result, regardless of the transition level, elementary school classrooms will adhere to the 3 feet social distancing. We will move to 6 feet social distancing for meals, high exhalation activities, and when we have to move through large common areas or when cohort missing is otherwise necessary. As a result of us being able to be 3 feet apart, we will have either 2 options for our families, either a full in-person model where students will be seated 3 feet apart, and that means our pre-K through 5 and special education students will attend school in person 5 days a week. And if the New York State Education Department approves, we will provide a fully virtual model for families if that is their choice. We are looking at our space constraints, and we have determined that if we exceed 75% enrollment capacity for our building, we will need to possibly relocate classrooms or students to buildings where we have space. Currently, we anticipate being able to handle our current enrollment if it rolls to next year, and that these changes will primarily impact new entrants to the district as we try to locate spaces for them. But we do believe we can accommodate all currently enrolled students. So this slide provides you with some required components of our plan to date. We're still working with a parent choice. We are asking that students and employees wear a mask, and we will continue to update that guidance as directed by the Albany County Department of Health. We will continue our daily health screenings and temperature checks. We are still asking parents to take their child's temperature and complete the daily health screener. We will continue to work our contact tracing with our local health department. And students will continue to be quarantined per DOH guidelines for COVID-like symptoms. And I feel like this piece was the piece that we probably didn't spend enough time on last year in our opening presentations, and just making sure families are clear that when your child exhibits what, in the past would have just been a typical cold or sniffle, those things present as COVID-like symptoms and may impact your child's ability to attend school per DOH guidelines. We will continue our daily cleaning and disinfecting protocols. And we will continue to follow the guidelines around sharing books, supplies, and materials. We hope to have more resources in our students' hands and have processes for disinfecting so that they get to use more of those resources in the classroom. At this time, school visitors will continue to be restricted unless necessary for school business. But again, we will continue to revisit the guidelines as we get closer to the start of the school year. And we will continue to work with our staff and students on proper hygiene and hand washing practices. So our scheduled instructional model will return to our in-person 6.5-hour day. Our early start schools go from 8 to 2:30, our late start schools from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. As mentioned before, lunch will be eaten in the classrooms, cafeterias, and overflow rooms at 6 feet apart so that we can adhere to the distancing required for meals. We are still thinking through breakfast options so that we don't have a great deal of time dedicated in the morning to having students eat breakfast in shifts. We're considering possibly sending breakfast home the night before so students can eat at home before they arrive at school. But we are still looking to provide space for those who will need breakfast without mixing cohorts. The virtual school day, if that is an option, will also be a 6.5-hour school day, and it'll be a balance of asynchronous, synchronous, encore, and small group intervention support so that the child's day replicates a more typical school day. We are working with each building to ensure space for after-school programming, and we are committed to ensuring that students have live encore instruction. That's live art, music, PE, and physical education if they are an in-person student, and live with the teacher if they are a virtual student. In addition, we are returning to the core teacher being the primary provider of instruction to a cohort of students. This year we had to split into groups in order to accommodate 6 feet, but we are confident that we will be able to fit students 3 feet apart with a core teacher in one classroom space. We will have a real focus on scaffolding students to reach grade level standards. So there's been a lot of discussion about learning loss, and we are really approaching our students by utilizing the data and what we know about our students and what their needs are, and trying to teach them the current grade material while simultaneously providing them support from areas that they may have missed or need to be strengthened, but not using a remediation model that takes our students backward, but instead an acceleration model that helps our students to continue to move forward. We will attend to what we call unfinished learning in that way. We are committed to maintaining at least 15 minutes of social emotional learning daily, and that may actually be a little bit more than that. This year we did 15 to 30 minutes and found it to be very valuable time and much needed for our students, and we want to make sure that they have the support to be successful in a new school year. As you may have seen in our budget process, we've requested additional supports to help our students continue to accelerate their learning. We've requested teaching assistants in grades kindergarten, first grade, and second grade to support small group instruction, and increased math reading support for students in grades 1st through 5th, and increased math support for students in grades 2 through 5. Again, we looked at what the data showed us and where support may be needed so that we can help accelerate learning. We are working on how we have our quarantine students be able to join their classroom virtually for a portion of the day so that they can stay connected to learning in the event that they have to be quarantined. And we are still working on the things that make things school for children, and that's recess and our classroom celebrations to ensure that they adhere to DOH guidelines and district policies so that our students still have an elementary school experience, even with social distancing restrictions. Finally, we have talked a lot at our board meetings about departmentalization or platooning as an acceleration strategy for grades 3 through 5, and I just wanted to provide a little more clarity there. In either model, whether the students move, which is departmentalization, or the teacher moves, which is platooning, students would work with 2 to 3 teachers for specific content, either ELA, math, or science and social studies. Students would have a homeroom teacher, so a teacher that was primarily responsible for them for the length of the day. And depending on the model, either the students or the teachers move to each classroom. Many teachers prefer that at this point, particularly with COVID and with younger students, if we were to do this in 3rd grade, that they would prefer to move and have the students remain stationary. The building would work with their teacher teams in grades 3 through 5 and determine at least one departmentalized grade level that they would want to offer for next year. We want to build our teachers' capacity to run this model effectively and build our students' capacity to be successful in this model. The benefit is that our teachers really get to become content experts and have a deep understanding of the standards and what students may have missed learning or still need support learning from previous grades, and be able to fill that more efficiently and keep our students moving forward in the right direction. I know there have been concerns about the ability of students to form relationships, but our students have proven to us this year that they've had to work with multiple adults, establish strong relationships, and be successful. And we believe that with content experts and classroom teachers, that they will continue to be successful with that model. We also have looked at streamlining our assessments and making sure that we have benchmark assessments in ELA and math that occur at a reasonable interval and don't consistently interfere with student learning time, but allow us to get a snapshot of how students are progressing throughout the year. We will continue with our NWEA assessment, which is a norm reference assessment that we administer 3 times a year, and with our EasyCBM assessment, which allows us to look at what we call the foundational skills or the basic skills that students need to read, and are very short probes that we also do 3 times a year to help inform our instruction. We are planning for a full virtual academy pending New York State education guidance and approval. This would be a separate standalone school with teachers, on-course teachers, interventionists, and office staff assigned to support that school specifically. Students will still be attached to their neighborhood school for accountability and for future in-person attendance, so parents wouldn't have to worry about relinquishing a seat at a building. So there will be an intense connection between that virtual academy staff and each building staff in the elementary schools. Some support staff will likely have to be shared, and so we're looking strategically based on the number of families who choose that option, what resources we need to place there. And we are stating at this point that students will need to commit to the full quarter of virtual academy before they would be able to decide if they wanted to change to in-person instruction. And some important dates we just want to share with you now is that we're looking for September 2nd and September 3rd to be full day orientations for grades 3 through 5 on the 2nd and grades pre-K through 2 on the 3rd. And our self-contained students will follow their respective grade level dates. And then just remember that on September 6th is Labor Day, there will be no school. September 7th is a professional development day, also no school, and that the first full day for everyone will be on September 8th. Our next steps is to wait for our parent survey to close so that families can decide what instructional model is best for them. That information is very important because it'll allow us to determine where we have space for all of our students and what we are able to offer in terms of our virtual academy. It allows us to continue our planning for student orientation. We're also planning for fall Chromebook distribution, where students will receive their assigned Chromebook. And we're developing a communication plan for our students and families and staff so that they have clear guidance for when we return to school in person. And I do believe that that concludes my presentation, and I will open it up for questions. So I see one question so far. It says, with regards to the choice form due May 26 is our decision binding. For example, if we specify in person but decide that we need to switch to virtual in the beginning of the fall, can we do this assuming virtual is an option? And so the superintendent has indicated that at this point we are asking families to make the commitment for the fall. However, if the guidance should change, so for example, if the transmission rate goes up and we have to move to a different model for some reason, that we would go back out to our families and allow them to make a different choice. So we are trying to make firm decisions based on our survey at this point in time. And so I know we're trying to give parents the space they need to think through and consider what will be best for their child in the fall. And I'll just wait a few more moments and just see if there are any other questions that I can assist with. And I do believe we're going to leave the survey open until June 1st for elementary and middle school students. So this recording has, or this presentation has been recorded, and so you can share with parents or family or friends that you know weren't able to attend. And you can also email me at cwilson if you have at albany.k12.ny.us if you have specific questions. Oh, I have another question. When will the survey be sent out? The survey is currently available on the district website, and you should be getting communications from your school through their school communications channel, letting you know that the survey is available for you to fill out. So it is available now on the district website. Just to follow up, if we choose virtual now, then this means we are committing to a virtual for the fourth quarter. Thanks. Yes, that would be correct. So if you choose virtual now, we're going to plan our space requirements around those selections, and we would assume that you're doing virtual for the first quarter. In terms of departmentalization, would an additional teacher be hired just to teach that subject? Would the core teacher not teach that subject? So departmentalization works with existing staff, and so if it were myself and one other teacher who taught fourth grade, the two of us would divide the content amongst ourselves. I might teach ELA and social studies. She may teach math and science, and I would teach ELA and social studies to my class and to her class, and she would teach math and science to her class and to my class. So it doesn't require additional staff. It's the redeployment of existing staff to allow them to be content specialists. There will be no before school care, correct. We are currently, thank you for asking the question. We are currently investigating before school care options with our community partners and with our school buildings to determine if there is space for us to be able to use that and if we're able to use existing funds to support that. So please stay tuned. It will be specific to each building as to whether or not before care is available. Are the orientation days in person? Yes, we will do in-person orientation days. The goal is to get our students acclimated back into school after the summer in smaller groups. So we'll have K2 come on one day and they'll have their different entrances and have this kind of space to move about. And then we'll have 3-5 on the next day. And yes, they'll be fully in person on those days. But the days that their grade level doesn't attend, that will be a home day for them. What is orientation for grades 3 through 5 about? Would it be in person or virtual? It'll be an in-person orientation for those students who are in person. It'll be a virtual orientation for those students who are virtual. And it'll be just focused on getting the students acclimated back to school. There'll probably be a time slot that we'll want parents to join with us remotely so that we can speak with them about what's new and different for school that year. But it's really an opportunity to just get the students reacclimated to the building in smaller grade level bands. Can you talk about encore subject? It says access to encore. What does that mean? So we call art, music, library, and physical education encore as an addition to their core instruction of ELA, math, and social studies. And this year, our access to live encore instruction was very limited because that staff was used to provide supervision due to social distancing requirements. And so this year, we've really focused on the importance of getting our art, music, and library and PE teachers either back into their physical spaces, offering classes for students to come to, or at least pushing in live every single day to provide instruction to students. As great as it was to have them providing supervision and students to be able to spend more time with them, this allows us to get back to having more students have access to their art, music, PE, and library teacher live every single week. Will early drop-off be available at late start schools next fall? As mentioned with an earlier question, we are reviewing before school care options, particularly in our late start schools, but all of our schools to see what we'll be able to accommodate, and it will be building specific. We still have to be very careful at this point per guidance as to not have large gatherings of students when not necessary, which would prevent us from going, back to complete normal where we would allow students to arrive a few minutes before actual start of school time. So please just stay posted on what each individual school will be able to offer in terms of how early students can arrive to school as we get guidance closer to the start of the school year. Okay. Oh, okay. Trying to use my wait time. Will lunch continue to be conducted in the classroom or will the cafeteria be open? We anticipate opening the cafeteria, but we will not be able to have all students use the cafeteria every day. We're going to have a schedule that allows us to appropriately space the children for lunch 6 feet apart, and we will have to use the cafeteria and then any additional classroom spaces to be able to split the students into smaller groups so that they can eat 6 feet apart for lunch. So what we hope to do is, each week or each month of different classes, the opportunity to eat back in the cafeteria, and doing some focus groups with students. That was an important feature of returning to normal school that they mentioned as well. Sorry if I missed, but I'm understanding correctly, in-person teachers will not be expected to teach virtual students simultaneously. That is correct. Elementary school teachers will either be an in-person teacher completely or a virtual teacher completely. The only time that may vary is if we have a student in that classroom on quarantine. We are looking at options for those students to be able to join their classroom remotely for a portion of the day so that they can still stay connected to instruction. But our teachers will not be doing what's called concurrent teaching, which is teaching live and virtually. Okay, I'll try again. Seeing no new questions, I'll come to a close. As I'm closing, a question comes up, I'll of course answer it as we were slotted till noon. But as I said, this has been recorded. You can go back and rewatch or share with other folks who weren't able to attend. I'll be doing another session at 5 today. And if there are still questions, you can reach out to your building principal or you can email me, cwilson@all albany.k12.ny.us if there are specific questions that still need to be answered. And just know that no decisions are final as presented here today, but is our best thinking to date per the guidance, and that as we continue to make adjustments, we will be communicating that with families. You are very welcome, and thank you for those of you who are able to join me today. What is the anticipated start date of school again? I'm going to scroll back quick. So orientations are the 2nd and the 3rd, and then the first full day of school is September 8th. All right, thank you again for joining me, and everyone have a good afternoon.